Jake Morrison stood at the big window of Earth Defense Station Alpha. His hands were pressed against the cold glass as he watched space. Far away, something was happening that made his heart beat faster. 12 huge ships were appearing out of nowhere, like ghosts becoming real. Each ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built. They were long and thick, covered in shiny metal that looked like gold and bronze mixed together. The ships moved slowly through space, but Jake knew they were deadly. These were Draconian warships, and they had come to Earth? "Sir, they are talking." "To us?" said Amy Carter. She was young and smart, and her job was to listen to messages from space. Her fingers moved quickly on her computer. "They want us to give up. They say we have 3 days to surrender or they will destroy everything." Jake looked at Lisa Rodriguez. She was his second in command and had been his friend for many years. Lisa was brave and smart, and Jake trusted her more than anyone else. They both knew this day would come. The Draconians had been moving closer to Earth for months, taking over planets and star systems. Every world they found, they conquered. Every people they met, they enslaved. "Can they see our hidden weapons?" Jake asked quietly. "No, sir. The hiding systems are working perfectly. They think we are just a weak planet with simple space stations," Lisa said. She was trying not to smile, but Jake could see she was excited. The main screen in the control room turned on. A face appeared that made everyone in the room feel scared. It was Admiral Zethkar, the leader of the Draconian fleet. His face looked like a snake mixed with a dragon. His skin was dark green with scales, and his eyes were yellow with thin black lines down the middle. When he spoke, his voice was cold and mean. "Weak humans," he said, and his long tongue came out to taste the air. "You will give us your world. You will become slaves in our great empire. Fighting us is impossible. You have seen what we did to the Centauri colonies. You know what happened to the vegan systems. All who fight us die." Jake walked forward so the alien could see him clearly. He made his face look calm and a little scared, even though inside he felt very different. "Admiral, thank you for your offer, but we need time to think about it. Maybe we could meet face to face to talk about the details?" The Draconian's eyes became smaller, like he was thinking hard. Jake could see that the alien was suspicious, but he was also proud and confident. The Admiral thought humans were too weak and stupid to trick him. "Very well," Zethkar said finally. "I will bring my main ship to your small station. You have 1 day to prepare your surrender papers." When the alien's face disappeared from the screen, Jake turned to his team. Everyone was looking at him, waiting for orders. These people had trained for years for this moment. They knew what they had to do. "Send the secret message to Luna Base," Jake said. "Tell them Operation Homecoming starts now." Amy's fingers flew across her keyboard. Luna Base was the secret command center hidden on the backside of Earth's moon. From there, Admiral Susan Grant controlled the real human fleet. But the Draconians didn't know about Luna Base. They didn't know about the real fleet. They thought humans were primitive and weak. "Message sent, sir," Amy said. "Luna Base confirms they are ready." Jake looked out the window again. The Draconian ships were moving into position around Earth. They looked powerful and dangerous, and they were. But Jake knew something the aliens didn't know. This was not going to be an easy conquest. Dr. Helen Brooks came into the control room. She was Earth's best scientist for studying aliens. She had spent years learning about Draconians by studying their technology and biology. Helen was quiet and smart, and she had helped plan everything they were about to do. "Jake, are you ready?" "For tomorrow?" she asked. "As ready as we can be." "You have everything you need in your lab?" "Yes, the special displays are prepared. The scanning equipment is hidden and ready. When they come aboard tomorrow, we will learn everything we need to know about them." Lisa walked over to them. "The fleet is moving into final position. All ships report ready." "The asteroid belt facilities are powering up." Jake nodded. The asteroid belt was where humans had built their secret shipyards. For 20 years, they had been building warships and hiding them in space rocks. The Draconians had no idea that thousands of human ships were waiting just a few hours away. "What about the other preparations?" Jake asked. "The evacuation ships are ready. If something goes wrong, we can get everyone off Earth in 6 hours. The defense platforms are charged and waiting, and the special weapons are loaded and targeted." Jake felt proud of his people. They had worked so hard to prepare for this day. Every human in the solar system knew their job. Children had been moved to safe places. Important people were in hidden bunkers. The military was ready for anything. "Sir," Amy called out, "we're getting reports from our spy ships. The Draconian fleet is bigger than we thought. They have support. Ships we didn't see before. How many ships total?" Jake asked. 37 ships, sir. 12 big warships, 15 smaller attack ships, and 10 support vessels." Jake smiled. The Draconians thought 37 ships was enough to conquer Earth. They had no idea what was waiting for them. "That's still much smaller than our fleet," Lisa said quietly. "Yes, but remember, we want them to think they are winning. Tomorrow, when Admiral Zethkar comes to our station, we will give him the performance of his life. He will think we are scared and weak. He will think victory is easy." Dr. Brooks checked her watch. "I should go prepare the lab. When they scan my equipment tomorrow, I want them to see exactly what we want them to see." "Good luck, Helen. Remember, everything depends on getting their biological data." As Dr. Brooks left, Jake looked at his team. These people were about to help save not just Earth, but many other worlds too. The Draconians had been conquering planets for years, but they had never met humans before. They had never met a species that was smarter than they were. "Get some rest, everyone," Jake said. "Tomorrow we begin the most important performance in human history." Outside the window, the Draconian fleet waited in the darkness of space. Admiral Zethkar was probably planning his victory celebration. He was probably thinking about how easy it would be to conquer the primitive humans. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The next morning came too fast and too slow at the same time. Jake Morrison had not slept well. He kept thinking about all the things that could go wrong. But when he walked into the control room, he felt ready. His team was already there working. "At their stations, status report," Jake said. "The Draconian flagship is moving toward us," Amy Carter reported. "They have 3 smaller ships with them as guards. They will be here in 2 hours, Jake nodded. The flagship was called Dominions, Fang, and it was huge. It could destroy their small station in minutes if the Admiral wanted to. But Jake knew the Admiral wouldn't do that. He was too proud. He wanted to see the humans beg for mercy. Dr. Helen Brooks came into the control room. She looked calm, but Jake could see she was nervous. Today was the most important day of her career. Everything she had studied and prepared for the last 5 years would be tested. "Is your lab ready?" Jake asked her. "Yes, all the fake specimens are in place. The hidden scanners are working perfectly. When they examine our displays, we will record everything about their biology. Their DNA, their weaknesses, everything." "Good. Remember, you need to seem impressed by them. Make them think you are just a curious scientist who wants to learn from superior aliens." Helen smiled. "I've been practicing. I think I can convince them." Lisa Rodriguez walked over to them. "Jake, we just got a message from Luna Base. Admiral Grant says the fleet is ready. All ships are in position and waiting for the signal." Jake felt better knowing that. Admiral Susan Grant was the smartest military leader Earth had ever produced. She had planned this operation for 3 years. If anyone could make it work, she could. "What about the asteroid belt facilities?" Jake asked. "Working at full power. They are building new ships even as we speak. By tomorrow, we will have 50 more warships ready for battle." The hours passed slowly. Jake and his team watched the Draconian ships get closer. The flagship was so big it blocked out the stars behind it. When it finally reached the station, everyone held their breath. "They are asking permission to come aboard," Amy said. "Grant it, and remember, everyone acts scared but cooperative." The teleportation room filled with light. When it faded, Admiral Zethkar was standing there with 6 of his warriors. They were all tall and strong, covered in armor that looked like it was made from dragon scales. Their weapons were elegant and deadly. Jake walked forward with his hands empty and visible. "Welcome to our station, Admiral. We are honored by your visit." Admiral Zethkar looked around with disgust. "Your station is pathetic. But it will do as a command center when we begin processing your people for the slave markets." The words made Jake angry, but he kept his face calm. "Your terms are very generous, Admiral. But some of my people have questions about the details." "Questions?" The Admiral's eyes flashed with anger. "You dare to question the generosity of the Draconian Empire?" "Not question, Admiral. We just want to understand how we can best serve you." This seemed to please the alien. Like most bullies, he enjoyed seeing others submit to his power. "Very well, show me your facilities. I want to see how primitive your technology is." For the next few hours, Jake led the Draconians around the station. They looked at the power systems, the life support, the communications equipment. The aliens made jokes about how simple everything was. They didn't notice the hidden scanners that were recording their every move. "Your people seem more curious than most species we conquer," Admiral Zethkar said as they walked. "This will make you good subjects for our science division. We will study you before we sell you." "Admiral," Dr. Brooks spoke up, "since you mentioned science, would you like to see our research lab? We have been studying life forms from across the galaxy." The Admiral's head turned quickly toward her. His yellow eyes grew bright with interest. "You have studied other species? Show me immediately." This was the moment they had been waiting for. Dr. Brooks led the group to her laboratory. The room was filled with display cases and scientific equipment. To the Draconians, it looked like a primitive research facility. They had no idea that every piece of equipment was actually an advanced scanner. "This is fascinating," Admiral Zethkar said, looking at the display cases. "Your species shows more intelligence than I expected. You will make excellent research subjects." As the Draconians examined the specimens, hidden scanners were recording everything. Their DNA patterns, their biological weaknesses, their nervous system responses. All of this data was being sent instantly to secret facilities across the solar system. "What is this creature?" one of the Draconian warriors asked, pointing at a display case. "We found it on a moon near Jupiter," Dr. Brooks lied smoothly. "It seems to be some kind of space-adapted organism. We have been trying to understand how it survives in the vacuum of space." The warrior leaned closer to examine the specimen. As he did, the scanners recorded his complete biological profile. In a few hours, human scientists would know everything about his species that they needed to know. Meanwhile, far away in the asteroid belt, something amazing was happening. The data from the scanning was being fed directly into massive manufacturing systems. Factories that had been hidden for decades were now working at full speed. They were building weapons designed specifically to fight Draconians. "Admiral," Jake said, "we have prepared a meal for you and your warriors. It would honor us if you would join us." "I suppose even primitive food is better than nothing?" the Admiral replied. The meal was served in the station's main dining hall. As the Draconians ate, they continued to boast about their conquests. They told stories about the worlds they had destroyed and the species they had enslaved. Each story made Jake more determined to stop them. "The Centauri colonies thought they could resist us," one warrior laughed. "They had orbital defenses and a small fleet. We destroyed them in less than an hour." "The vegan systems were more entertaining," another said. "They tried to hide their population in underground cities. It took us 3 days to find them all." Dr. Brooks asked careful questions about these conquests. She seemed like a scientist who was curious about alien military technology. But really, she was gathering intelligence about Draconian tactics and capabilities. "How do you usually approach a new system?" she asked innocently. "We send scouts first," Admiral Zethkar replied proudly. "Then we position our main fleet at the edge of the system. We give the inhabitants time to surrender. If they refuse, we destroy their defenses and take what we want." "That sounds very efficient," Dr. Brooks said. "Do you ever encounter species with advanced technology?" "Sometimes. But our technology is always superior. We have conquered 17 star systems. No species has ever defeated us in battle. As the meal continued, Jake noticed something interesting. The Draconians were starting to look tired. Their movements were slower, and their speech was becoming slurred. The food had been treated with a mild sedative that would make them drowsy without being obvious. "Admiral," Jake said, "perhaps you and your warriors would like to rest before we continue our discussions?" "Perhaps that would be wise," the Admiral agreed. "Your food is making me sleepy." "Do all humans eat such rich meals?" "Only for special occasions," Jake replied. "We have prepared comfortable quarters for you." As the Draconians were led to their rooms, Jake felt a moment of satisfaction. The first part of their plan was working perfectly. The aliens had no idea that while they were eating and resting, their complete biological profiles were being analyzed by the best scientists in the solar system. "How long until we have the analysis complete?" Jake asked Dr. Brooks quietly. 6 hours, maybe less. "The computers are working faster than we expected." Jake looked out the window at the Draconian fleet. 37 ships filled with warriors, who thought they were about to conquer Earth. They had no idea that their greatest weakness was their own confidence. In 6 hours, everything would change. The real battle was about to begin. 24 hours after the negotiations began, Admiral Zethkar returned to his flagship feeling very pleased with himself. The humans had agreed to surrender, just like every other species he had conquered. His victory was complete, and Earth would be another trophy in his collection. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving the human surrender document now." Admiral Zethkar sat down in his command chair, enjoying the moment. This was his favorite part of any conquest. The moment when his enemies finally accepted that they were beaten. "Excellent. Begin moving our ground troops. I want soldiers on their biggest cities within 1 hour." His fleet started moving into position around Earth. The plan was simple. They would land troops on the major continents, take control of the government centers, and begin processing the population for slavery. It had worked on 17 other worlds. It would work here too. But as his ships moved closer to Earth, something strange started to happen. The space around the planet began to shimmer and glow. At first, the Draconian sensors didn't know what they were seeing. "Admiral," his weapons officer called out in alarm, "we are detecting energy signatures, very large ones. They are coming from everywhere around us." Admiral Zethkar stood up from his chair. "What do you mean everywhere?" "Sir, there are ships appearing, hundreds of them, maybe thousands." The truth revealed itself in a way that made every Draconian on every ship feel terror for the first time in their lives. The empty space around Earth was suddenly filled with warships. Human warships. They were sleek and beautiful, with smooth curves and weapons that glowed with power. They appeared in perfect formation, surrounding the Draconian fleet completely. "This is impossible," Admiral Zethkar whispered. His claws dug into his command chair as he stared at the display screens. "Our intelligence said they were primitive. They were supposed to have only basic spaceships. The human fleet was enormous. Every direction he looked, there were more ships. They were arranged in complex patterns that showed incredible coordination and planning. The Draconian fleet of 37 ships was outnumbered by more than 20 to 1. "Admiral," his science officer said in a shaking voice, "the energy readings from their weapons are off our scales. I cannot even estimate how powerful they are." A new voice came over the communication system. It was calm and confident, nothing like the scared human voices they had heard before. "Admiral Zethkar, this is Captain Tony Martinez of the human vessel New Horizon. You are surrounded and completely outgunned. Your weapons are locked onto by systems that were designed specifically to counter your technology. I suggest you listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you." Admiral Zethkar tried to order his fleet to attack, but nothing happened. His weapons would not fire, his engines would not start. His ships were floating helplessly in space like dead rocks. "What have you done to us?" he demanded. "We have done exactly what we planned to do," Captain Martinez replied. "You see, Admiral, we have been watching your empire expand for quite some time. We have studied your tactics, your technology, and most importantly, your biology. We know exactly how you operate, and we have prepared for this moment." Another voice joined the conversation. It was Dr. Helen Brooks, speaking from her laboratory on the space station. "The specimens you examined yesterday were not from other alien species, Admiral. They were from your own people, Draconians who tried to attack human colonies in the outer systems years ago. We have been studying your species for a very long time." The full horror of the situation began to sink in. The humans had been planning this for years, maybe decades. Every move the Draconians had made, every conquest they had achieved had been watched and analyzed by human intelligence. The biological agent affecting your crews right now was created specifically for your subspecies, Dr. Brooks continued. "It causes temporary paralysis and confusion, but it will not kill you. We are not interested in genocide, Admiral. We are interested in education." Admiral Zethkar could barely move. The paralysis was spreading through his body, and his thoughts were becoming fuzzy. Around him, his crew was collapsing at their stations. The same thing was happening on every ship in his fleet. "You cannot do this," he managed to say. "We are the Draconian Empire. We have conquered 17 star systems. We are the masters of this galaxy." "No," Captain Martinez said gently. "You are students who have been attending a very expensive school, and now it is time for your final examination." Human ships began approaching the disabled Draconian vessels. They moved with perfect precision, their boarding tubes extending to connect with the alien ships. There was no violence, no explosions, no destruction. The humans took control of the Draconian fleet as easily as adults taking toys away from children. "How?" Admiral Zethkar asked as human soldiers in advanced armor appeared on his bridge. "How did you know we were coming?" Commander Jake Morrison materialized on the bridge using teleportation technology that was clearly more advanced than anything the Draconians had. "Admiral, we have been tracking your empire's expansion for over 50 years. Every world you thought you conquered, every species you thought you enslaved, every victory you celebrated was part of a carefully planned operation." Jake walked around the bridge, examining the Draconian technology with the casual interest of someone looking at primitive tools. "You see, we needed to understand your capabilities before we made contact. We needed to know how you think, how you fight, how you make decisions." "You are lying," Admiral Zethkar said, though his voice was weak. "We destroyed whole civilizations. We saw them die." "No, you saw what we wanted you to see," Jake replied. "Holographic projections. Automated defenses, empty cities filled with robots and computer programs. The real populations were evacuated months before you arrived." A holographic display appeared in the center of the bridge. It showed the galaxy from a perspective the Draconians had never seen before. Their entire empire was highlighted in red, but it was surrounded by vast areas of blue that represented human territory. "Your empire, Admiral, exists in what we call a nursery sector, a small region of space where we allow aggressive species to develop and grow until they are ready for contact with the larger galactic community." The display zoomed in on the Draconian conquests. Each system showed the real story. The Centauri colonies had been relocated to a protected world outside Draconian space. The vegan systems had been evacuated and their populations moved to new homes. Every conquest the Draconians had made was revealed to be an elaborate illusion. "Every species you thought you conquered is alive and well," Jake said. "They are living on protected worlds, learning and growing, preparing for the day when they can join the galactic community as equals." Admiral Zethkar felt his world crumbling around him. Everything he had believed about his empire, everything he had been proud of, was built on lies and deception. His people were not great conquerors. They were children being managed by adults. "What do you want from us?" he asked. "That, Admiral, is an excellent question," Jake replied. "What we want is for your species to grow beyond its current limitations. We want you to become contributors to galactic civilization instead of destroyers." The human soldiers on the bridge were not threatening or aggressive. They stood calmly, waiting for orders. Their weapons were advanced beyond anything the Draconians had ever seen, but they were not pointed at anyone. You have a choice to make. Jake continued, your entire species has a choice to make. You can continue on your current path, which leads only to isolation and eventual self-destruction. Or you can choose to evolve, to become something better than what you are now. And if we refuse? Admiral Zethkar asked. Then you will be relocated to isolated systems where you can continue your aggressive behavior without harming anyone else. Think of it as a very large playground where you can fight and conquer to your heart's content. The implications were staggering. The humans were not just more advanced than the Draconians had imagined. They were so far ahead that they could treat the entire Draconian Empire like a minor problem to be managed. How many species have you done this to? Admiral Zethkar asked. Dozens, Jake replied. Over the centuries, we have encountered many aggressive civilizations. Some chose to evolve and join our alliance. Others chose to remain in their isolated sectors, playing war games until they grew tired of fighting. The Admiral looked around, his bridge at his defeated crew. These warriors had been the pride of the Draconian Empire. Now they were helpless prisoners of a species they had considered primitive just hours before. I need time to think, he said finally. Of course, Jake replied. This is not a decision to be made quickly. But remember, Admiral, this choice will determine the future of your entire species. Choose wisely. 3 days passed before Admiral Zethkar was ready to speak again. The human fleet had moved all the Draconian ships to a safe area near Jupiter, where huge space stations provided comfortable places for the alien crews to stay. The Draconians were not prisoners exactly, but they could not leave either. Admiral Zethkar found himself sitting in a large meeting room on the human flagship New Horizon. The room was bright and clean, with big windows that showed the stars. Outside, across from him, sat several humans who would decide what happened to his entire species. Admiral, said Dr. Patricia Lewis, a woman with gray hair and kind eyes, we understand this has been difficult for you. Learning that everything you believed was wrong is never easy. Zethkar looked at her with confusion. Why are you being kind to us? We came here to conquer your world. We plan to make your people slaves. Because, Dr. Lewis replied gently, anger and revenge solve nothing. We have learned that helping others grow is much more satisfying than destroying them. General Robert Kim, a tall man with strong hands, leaned forward. Admiral, we want you to understand something important. Your species is not evil. You are not monsters. You are simply following patterns that many species follow when they first develop space travel. What do you mean? Zethkar asked. Aggression, conquest, the need to dominate others. These are common traits in young civilizations. Most species go through this phase. The question is whether they grow beyond it or remain trapped by it. New person entered the room. She was older than the others, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. When she spoke, even the other humans listened carefully. I am Fleet Admiral Susan Grant, she said. I have been watching your species for many years, Admiral. I have seen your potential, and I have seen your limitations. Zethkar had heard this name before. She was the commander of all human military forces, the one who had planned his defeat so completely. What do you want from us? He asked. I want your species to become everything it can be, Admiral Grant replied. Right now you are like children, playing with dangerous toys, but you could become so much more. She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy in amazing detail. Thousands of star systems appeared, connected by lines of light that showed trade routes and communication networks. This is the real galaxy, Admiral. Not the small section where your empire exists, but the true scope of civilized space. Hundreds of species working together, sharing knowledge, exploring new worlds, creating wonders you cannot imagine. The display zoomed in on different areas. Zethkar saw space stations the size of moons, planets that had been transformed into gardens, fleets of ships working together to build new worlds. Every species you see was once like yours, Admiral Grant continued. They were aggressive, territorial, convinced that conquest was the only way to survive. But they chose to grow beyond those limitations, and the ones who didn't choose? Zethkar asked, though he was afraid of the answer. They live in isolated sectors, fighting endless wars with each other until they grow tired of it. Some eventually ask to join the galactic community. Others remain isolated by choice. Dr. Lewis spoke up again. Admiral, we have been studying your species for decades. We know your history, your culture, your potential. Draconians are intelligent, brave, and capable of great things. But your society has become trapped in a cycle of violence and domination? What would you have us do? Zethkar asked. Our entire civilization is built on conquest. Our young people train from childhood to be warriors. Our leaders gain power through military victory. How can we change something so fundamental? General Kim smiled, the same way every other species has changed. Slowly, carefully, with help from those who have walked this path before. The human leaders began to explain their plan. It was complex and would take many years to complete. Draconian society would need to be gradually transformed. Their military would be retrained for exploration and defense instead of conquest. Their young people would learn new skills beyond warfare. Their leaders would be chosen for wisdom instead of aggression. We are not asking you to become like us, Dr. Lewis said. We are asking you to become the best version of yourselves, to keep what is good about your culture while letting go of what is harmful. And if we refuse? Zethkar asked. Then you will be relocated to a sector of space where you can continue your current way of life without harming others, Admiral Grant replied. It is a large area with many planets and resources. Your people can fight and conquer to their hearts. Content. But we would be alone, Zethkar said, understanding the true meaning of the offer. Yes, cut off from the rest of the galaxy. Unable to learn from other species or contribute to the greater community. It is not a punishment, Admiral. It is simply the natural consequence of choosing to remain as you are. The room was quiet for a long time. Zethkar thought about everything he had learned. His people's entire history was built on a lie. Their greatest victories were illusions created by humans. Their mighty empire was nothing more than a nursery for aggressive children. How many of our people know the truth? He asked finally. All of your fleet commanders are being given the same choice you are being given, General Kim replied. Every Draconian ship in space is currently in human custody. Your homeworlds are being watched, but not threatened. This decision must be made by your entire species, not just by you. What about the other species we conquered? The ones you saved? They are doing well, Dr. Lewis said with a smile. The Centauri have developed remarkable art and music. The vegans have become excellent engineers and scientists. They bear no hatred toward your people. They understand that you were simply following your nature. Admiral Grant leaned back in her chair. Admiral, I want you to understand something. This is not the first time we have done this. We have guided dozens of species through this transition. Some resisted at first, but eventually chose to evolve. Others accepted the isolated sectors and continued their old ways. How do you decide which species get this chance? Zethkar asked. Every species gets this chance, Admiral Grant replied. No one is beyond redemption. No civilization is too far gone to change. We believe that every form of intelligent life has value and potential. The holographic display changed to show images of former aggressive species that had chosen to evolve. Zethkar saw warriors who had become artists, conquerors who had become explorers, destroyers who had become builders. These species were once just like yours, Dr. Lewis explained. They thought conquest was the only way to survive. They believed that showing mercy was weakness. But they learned that cooperation is stronger than domination, that building is more satisfying than destroying. How long would this transformation take? Zethkar asked. Generations, General Kim replied honestly. Real change takes time. Your children would grow up in a different world than you did. Their children would be even more different. But eventually, your species would find its place in the galactic community. And what would that place be? That would be up to you, Admiral Grant said. Every species contributes something unique. The Altarians are master healers. The Rigelians are brilliant mathematicians. The Arcturians are skilled diplomats. Your people have qualities that could benefit everyone. What qualities? Zethkar asked, genuinely curious. Courage, Dr. Lewis said immediately. Determination. The ability to make difficult decisions under pressure. These are valuable traits when directed toward positive goals. The meeting continued for hours. The humans answered every question Zethkar asked. They showed him detailed plans for the transformation process. They explained how other species had successfully made the transition. They were patient and kind, even though they held all the power. Finally, Admiral Grant stood up. Admiral, you have seen the truth about your empire and your species. You have learned what choices are available to you. Now you must decide. Will your people choose to grow beyond their limitations, or will they choose to remain as they are? Zethkar looked around the room at the humans who had defeated him so completely. They could have destroyed his fleet easily. They could have enslaved his people or wiped out his civilization. Instead, they were offering his species a chance to become something better. I need to speak with my commanders, he said finally. This decision affects every Draconian alive. We must choose together. Of course, Admiral Grant replied. Take all the time you need. But remember, Admiral, this choice will echo through the centuries. Choose wisely. As Zethkar left the meeting room, he carried with him the weight of his species' future. For the first time in his life, he understood that true strength came not from conquering others, but from conquering oneself. Admiral Zethkar spent the next week talking to every commander in his fleet. The conversations were difficult and painful. Many of his officers could not accept the truth about their empire. Some refused to believe that their conquests had been illusions. Others became angry and demanded that they fight the humans, even though they knew it was hopeless. But slowly, as the evidence became impossible to deny, his commanders began to understand. Their great empire was built on lies. Their victories were meaningless. Their entire way of life was nothing more than a game played by more advanced beings. What do you think we should do? Asked Commander Vextar, one of Zethkar's oldest friends. They had fought together for 20 years, conquering worlds and building what they thought was a mighty empire. I have been thinking about that question every day, Zethkar replied. Part of me wants to choose isolation, to take our people to the outer sectors and continue living as we always have. At least then we would be free. But? Vextar asked, sensing there was more. But I have seen what we could become. The humans showed me images of other species who chose to change. They are not weak or defeated. They are stronger than we ever were. They build things that last. They create beauty instead of destruction. They explore the unknown instead of conquering the known. Another commander, a young female named Siltara, spoke up. Admiral, my daughter is only 10 years old. If we choose isolation, she will grow up in a world of endless war. She will never know peace. She will never see the wonders of the galaxy that the humans showed us. And if we choose to change, added Commander Kexmore, our children will grow up in a world we cannot imagine. They will be different from us. They may not even understand why we once thought conquest was important. These conversations continued for days. Each commander had to wrestle with the same impossible choice. Hold on to everything they had ever believed, or trust their former enemies to help them become something new. Meanwhile, similar discussions were happening throughout the Draconian Empire. Every fleet commander, every planetary governor, every military leader was learning the same terrible truth. Their civilization was not what they thought it was. On the 7th day, Admiral Zethkar requested another meeting with the human leadership. This time, he brought his senior commanders with him. They walked into the meeting room on the human flagship with the weight of their species' future on their shoulders. Fleet Admiral Susan Grant was waiting for them. Along with Dr. Patricia Lewis and General Robert Kim, the humans looked calm and patient, as if they had all the time in the world. "Admiral," Grant said, "have you reached a decision?" Zethkar looked at his commanders, then back at the humans. "We have decided to accept your offer. We choose to change. We choose to become something better than what we are." The relief on the humans' faces was obvious. Dr. Lewis smiled, and General Kim nodded with approval. But it was Admiral Grant's reaction that surprised Zethkar the most. The tough military leader's eyes filled with tears. "Admiral," she said, "you have just made the bravest decision in your species' history. I know how difficult this must be for you." "It is terrifying," Zethkar admitted. "We are giving up everything we have ever known. We are trusting you to help us become something we cannot even imagine." "That trust will not be misplaced," Grant replied firmly. "We will help you every step of the way. But understand, this journey will be long and difficult. There will be times when you want to give up, when you want to return to your old ways. We will be there to support you through those times." Dr. Lewis leaned forward. "Admiral, the first step is education. We need to help your people understand the larger galaxy. They need to see what is possible when species work together instead of fighting each other." "How will we do that?" asked Commander Vextar. "Exchange programs," General Kim replied. "We will send some of your people to live with other species to learn their ways. And we will send representatives from other species to live with your people to share their knowledge and experience." "What about our military?" asked Commander Siltara. "We have millions of warriors who know nothing but fighting. They will be retrained," Admiral Grant said. "Warriors make excellent explorers and defenders. The skills they have learned in battle can be used to protect innocent people instead of conquering them." Over the next several hours, the humans outlined their plan in detail. It was comprehensive and carefully thought out. Nothing was left to chance. The transformation would take place gradually. Over many generations, young Draconians would be educated in schools that taught cooperation alongside competition. They would learn about art and science and philosophy, not just warfare. They would travel to other worlds and meet other species as friends, not as conquerors. Adult Draconians would be given new roles in society. Scientists would study the universe instead of weapons. Engineers would build cities instead of warships. Leaders would be chosen for their wisdom and compassion, not their ability to win battles. "What about resistance?" asked Commander Kexmore. "Not all of our people will accept this change willingly." "We know," Dr. Lewis replied. "Change is always difficult. Some individuals will resist. Some communities will try to hold on to the old ways. But we have experience with this. We know how to help people adapt." "The key," Admiral Grant added, "is patience. Real change takes time. We will not force anyone to accept the new ways immediately. We will demonstrate the benefits of cooperation and let people choose for themselves." As the meeting continued, Zethkar began to feel something he had never experienced before: hope. For the first time in his life, he could imagine a future where his people were not constantly at war, where children could grow up without learning to kill, where the greatest achievements were measured not in conquests, but in discoveries and creations. "There is one more thing," Dr. Lewis said as the meeting was ending. "The species you thought you had conquered want to meet with you." "What?" Zethkar asked in surprise. "The Centauri, the vegans, all the others. They know the truth about what happened. They want to welcome you to the galactic community. They want to help with your transformation." "But we tried to destroy them," Commander Vextar said. "Why would they want to help us?" "Because they understand that you were not truly evil," General Kim replied. "You were simply following your nature. They want to help you discover a better nature." Admiral Grant stood up from her chair. "Admiral Zethkar, your species is about to begin the greatest adventure in its history. You are going to discover things about yourselves that you never knew existed. You are going to contribute to the galaxy in ways you cannot imagine." "What will happen to us personally?" Zethkar asked. The commanders and officers who led the conquests. You will become teachers, Dr. Lewis said. You will help other Draconians understand the transition. You will share your experiences and help guide your people through the changes. Your knowledge of the old ways will be valuable in building the new ones. As the meeting ended, Zethkar felt a strange mixture of sadness and excitement. He was sad because his old life was ending. Everything he had believed about himself and his people was changing. But he was excited because he could see the possibility of something wonderful ahead. The humans had given his species the greatest gift possible. They had given them hope for a better future. They had shown them that it was possible to be strong without being cruel, to be brave without being aggressive, to be proud without being destructive. 6 months later, Admiral Zethkar stood on the observation deck of a human research station, watching his people work alongside scientists from a dozen different species. Young Draconians who had once trained for war were now learning to heal the sick and explore distant stars. Warriors who had once conquered planets were now protecting trade routes and helping to build new colonies. The transformation was not complete. It would take generations, but it had begun. And for the first time in Draconian history, their future was brighter than their past. Looking out at the stars, Zethkar realized that the humans had not just defeated his empire. They had freed his people from the prison of their own limitations. They had shown them that the greatest conquest was not the conquest of others, but the conquest of fear and hatred within themselves. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders. And finally, the Draconians were ready to explore it as friends instead of enemies.